Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen W. Long. This is The Writing Life, and I'm so pleased to have my guests, Reg and Sue Spittle, for a couple of reasons. One is they're terrific, and his books are terrific. Beyond that, we worked for this. We started this, it's got to be a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was a while.
We tried to put it together. Anyway, guys, welcome so much, and it's going to be fun talking about. Well, let me say why I met you, or why I know about the book. I was preparing to hike the Camino de Santiago, and not knowing anything about it, I was asking around, and somebody recommended your book, and so I got that, and that was a good start. But
Pleasure to be here, though, Steve.
Well, good, thank you. This book is is that your first, Camino Sunrise?
It is.
Camino Sunrise, Walking with My Shadows, and which is terrific, and you may have pictures with your shadows. I certainly do. But the more important part to me is one reluctant pilgrim packs a weighty load on a 500-mile path. So that's something that I want to get into. But I know where the notion came from for this walk. It was the movie
The
Way.
Right.
Yeah.
Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen,
Right.
produced by his son, I think, Emilio Estevez.
Yes.
Now, you guys saw that, and Sue, I want to start with you, but you had two different reactions to this, two different takes on the movie.
I had, well, we watched it as the credits were rolling, and Reg he said, well, that's a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
And my response was, as I remember it, we should do it.
Yeah.
Famous words.
We should do it.
Yeah.
And Reg thought I was nuts. His first response was, we can't do that. We can't do that.
Right.
We can't 500 miles across Spain carrying backpacks, which is something we'd never done.
Sure.
And I don't know, there's something I just really felt like it was something we needed to do, something I needed to do. And my response was, well, but what if we can?
Yeah.
What if we can do it?
Right.
What
And
if?
I want to ask you, you can be thinking about this.
Okay.
How or why, what changed your mind? But did you actively work on him, or did you let that idea marinate?
Oh, no. We had just retired. I had just retired. Reg had retired a few months earlier, and I had stopped working, and that was one of the first movies I guess we watched. It came to our home in Netflix, in the little package. I didn't know anything about the Camino, except that just before I quit working, the newspaper I worked for had written a story about a father and son who'd worked a part of it.
Really? Okay.
Walked a part of it. And that was the first I'd heard about it. So then we watched this movie.
And it sort of came together.
Well, it just sort of intrigued me. And soon after that, we had scheduled a trip to Italy. It was our first retirement trip. And my memory is all through that trip, Reg kept saying, can't do it.
Okay, now that's something I didn't know.
Yeah.
In other words, you went to Italy before.
Before the Camino. We just took just 3 weeks in Italy, and I kept bringing it up. We could walk across Spain. We could do it.
Yeah.
So that was in the summer, I think, that we watched the movie, and it took me until Christmas time to get him on board.
Yeah, and was it a thing that she said or did, or did you just come to grips with that?
Sue is persistent when she really wants to do something.
Yeah.
And it really was, I started out, it wasn't just the idea of walking 500 miles that intimidated me. It was staying in the albergues, the lack of privacy, undressing in front of others, using co-ed bathrooms, sleeping in co-ed dorms.
Yeah.
All of that, besides just the walking and backpacking, which we lacked that experience.
Right.
So that intimidated me. I'm a real private guy.
I'm totally with you there. And this might be a good time to say, the Camino, that kind of a hike, a walk, a pilgrimage, is different than the Appalachian Trail. or different than the Pacific Coast. What is it? The
Pacific Crest Trail?
Pacific Crest Trail. And one of the things is, and I don't have much of a desire to do that kind of a thing because of the bathroom facilities and the showers, or lack of. And the other thing is you're carrying your food, well, and you're carrying your tent. On the Camino, you've got a change of clothes, some toiletries, and if you want it, they're cooking for you. There's a place to stay.
Right.
We
carried a sleeping bag and a liner.
Right.
And clothing, because in the albergues, you need those.
Sure.
Those.
Here's something I just thought of. Bed bugs. Did you encounter that?
Did not.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
But
we've never had bed bugs in the 10, 12 years we've been doing this.
Okay.
Everybody talks about them, but we never.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, I guess.
Jinx.
One of the big no-nos is to put your backpack on a bunk.
Right.
Because it can carry bugs. Well,
Yeah.
I had no idea. So what's the first thing I did when we got there? Our
Of
first
course.
albergue.
Of course.
Yeah.
And you leave your shoes, I mean, typically at the entrance or someplace, and don't bring your shoes in.
Sometimes.
That wasn't your
I would
experience?
say not all the time.
No, I'd say most of the time,
Really?
It was all
Okay.
accommodation hosts don't require that.
Oh, okay.
They let you take your packs and everything up to the room. But
We certainly took our packs. It was recommended to have a change of shoe, and so I had sandals, but for that kind of thing.
But interestingly enough, if I carry through that thought of what happened on our first night, is my nerves were getting to me, and I can remember like it was yesterday, walking up the steps of that first albergue to our first crowded dorm room, and it was stuffed. It was full of people.
Right.
16 people, I think.
In this tiny place.
Yeah.
And when we left the next morning, my anxiety had lifted.
Really?
And
is there a reason for that, or just?
There is.
Okay.
It's just a very welcoming feeling.
Okay.
And the people are they respect privacy, and from all over the world. And our first meal, we sat down at this long table with, we were the only Americans.
Yeah.
We ended up a year later visiting 4 of the people at that table at their homes in Europe.
Oh my gosh.
That's how quickly we bonded.
Yeah.
And that first night was the start of it.
I have to say, my experience, and I think this is probably a truism, the kind of people who would do that are the kind of people that you want to befriend.
That's our experience.
Yeah, we meet wonderful people on the trail.
Yeah.
It just, and I will say, we weren't planning on staying at that first albergue that we came to.
And that was Pamplona?
It was just after Pamplona.
Okay.
Uterga.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
They
Okay.
go over the hill and just down a bit.
I want to ask you about the hill, too.
Yeah. But,
The Hill of Forgiveness, right?
Right, I think it is.
Yeah. And okay, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, the skies were clouding over. It was getting very dark. We had planned to walk much farther, but we came up to that albergue, and there was a gentleman that was, waved and hello. We had seen him earlier in the day. He said, "Come in, have a drink, sit down," and we did, and we ended up staying there, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of our trip.
Did.
I would
very
say.
much.
Yeah. So, that's Alto de Perdón, I think we would say the Hill of Forgiveness. And up on top there are the iconic sculptures. The
metal sculptures.
Yeah, that's a long climb.
It's a bit of a climb.
Yeah. So once you said, you know what, let's try to do this. How did you train? How did you prepare for that?
Well, we did
Not very well. Not very well, probably.
Yeah.
We lived near Yosemite National Park then. That's where we raised our kids. So we got our packs and we filled them and walked around in Yosemite, walked around our neighborhood, felt a little silly walking around our neighborhood with backpacks on.
Trekking poles or no?
We eventually went that direction.
Yeah, we sort of had a, trekking poles were for old people attitude. But we got past that, and we're glad we used them. I mean, now we use them all the time.
Well, it took me about 3 minutes to get past that.
Did it?
They're so helpful.
Yes.
They are.
I have to say, I fell a couple of times.
Oh no.
And yeah, and I had my hands through the straps, and I've stopped doing that because you can't let go. In other words, if you stumble, you can't put your hands out because you're holding onto the poles, and you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
That's just a little. If anybody's taking notes here, that's my recommendation. Yeah. But anyway, so you did the preparation, the hiking. Was it adequate? It sounds like no. An adequate preparation?
My memory is the first week of walking, we'd wake up in the morning and just sort of hobble out of bed.
Sure.
It was so stiff and sore.
Sure.
I don't know if there's any way to really prepare for a distance trek to do something that's going to replicate the day after day carrying weight with the terrain.
There's a cumulative fatigue, I think.
Right.
I thought that I trained here. I was so proud of myself. Man, I walked 2 or 3 miles. Then I'd walk 2 or 3 miles with a backpack. Well, it's irrelevant.
But you do get stronger.
Oh, sure.
Don't you think?
Oh,
within
well,
a few days?
I have heard the only effective preparation for the Camino is the first week of the Camino.
I
Probably
totally agree with
true.
that.
Yeah.
And I think you were going to start at Saint Jean Pied de Port, but didn't.
It was the path was snowed in. It's closed.
Right.
So we canceled our taxi
Right.
from Pamplona to San John and just started in Pamplona.
No sense in doing that. We started at St. John, and it was tough. I went with 2 of my brothers, and one of them had a very difficult time that first couple of days, and we all got stronger, but to varying degrees.
What year did you do it?
Thanks a lot.
I'm not the interviewer.
I think 23.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it was on my resume, on my life resume. That's a highlight. I don't know, because there's so much to do, and which I want to talk to you guys about too. I don't know that I'd do it again. I was gone a long time, and I was away from my wife. I'd never been away that long, so I don't know that I'd do that. I would like to do something with her. So, what a segue. You guys have done several long hikes, and talk a little bit about that.
Well,
now, these were in Europe.
Almost all.
Okay.
We did one in California, the John Muir Trail. That's the subject of my last book.
Yeah, right. And that is?
That's this book, Hoofing It,
okay.
on the John Muir Trail.
Okay.
And that was in the wilderness, so that was the toughest hike we've done.
Okay. And again, and something like that, you're carrying a pack, you're carrying your food? Is that?
No, that was a supported trek.
Oh, okay.
So we had a mule train.
Okay.
We were very fortunate.
Yeah.
We were very well taken care of.
That was,
Yeah.
That goes through the High Sierra, and Mount Whitney is part of it.
Okay.
Starts down south of Mount Whitney, and we ended up in Yosemite.
Okay.
And you're going up over 10,000 foot most of the time.
Which makes a difference. Speaking of John Muir, I think I'm using the right terminology. I think there's a John Muir Trail in Scotland.
There is.
And that's something that my wife and I could do together, and we're kind of thinking about that.
We did the West Highland Way in Scotland.
Okay.
Which is a really nice, what is it, about 100? Is it 100 miles, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beautiful. A lot of different terrain. Real historic.
Sure.
Yeah. That was our second hike, I guess. Yeah.
When you said we can't do that, I think that would be a pretty common response. And I don't know that this is would be like an American kind of a thing, but by and large, I don't think our population walks a lot. And so, because we don't, if you say, oh, it's 2 miles, or it's 5 miles, or whatever the number is, that seems like a long way. After a while, it's like nothing. And so we went to Santiago, but then on to Finisterre. And I think it was 56 miles or something. oh my God, you walk 56 miles, but it's like you're just walking. And now the other thing I have to say is, and I'm sure you experience this, because you're walking, you walk everywhere. So if you're walking along and there's a castle up on the hill, if you're going to go see the castle, that's hours out of your day. And we had to get to the next albergue. Then I suspect you did as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But when we think of these treks, I mean, we're just a couple weeks away from a couple more treks in Europe, and the nerves are starting. You get nervous if even these number 9 and 10. We're still getting nervous. But really, you can't think of these. I try not to think of these treks as the total miles.
Right.
You think of it as steps, and you just start. And they say one step at a time.
Right.
But that's true.
Longest journey.
Yeah.
Start with first step.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to think about it. And you have to think about it as one day at a time.
Right.
And one moment at a time. And take it all in and feel it.
Right.
While you're going along, and not, if you look down at the end of the road, you know, it's
well, you're not in the moment, for one thing.
right.
I talked to the fellas here at the studio about filming our Camino, our pilgrimage. And Phil, who is here today, thank you, Phil, said they would show it if I did it, but he thinks I would shortchange myself because now you're thinking about filming. You're not thinking about what you're doing right there, right then, and he was absolutely right. So I think we're kind of on the same page there. I want to really get to something else. To me, the crux of this book is not the hiking and the people you met and the things you did and saw. To me, the crux is, as I read it, the change in you. And
Right.
I was thinking, this is a pilgrimage, and you know, it sort of has assumptions about enlightenment or something. But I think you really did change. Is that fair?
Yeah, I was very anxious about hiking the Camino, but my life had been filled with anxiety as a child. I had a real difficult childhood, and it carried on into adulthood, and a lot of the troubles from childhood carried on.
Sure.
And on the Camino, you have a lot of time to think.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which is one of the great things about the Camino, about all these treks. And my mind went back to a lot of the things from way back in my life.
Yeah.
When I sat down to write, my feeling about writing, when I sit down, the adventure comes back.
Okay.
As with each word, but also other feelings come back that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
And they just come and they just flowed into the book. So the anecdotes that I bring up in this book from my childhood came back, and I let them go into the book. And the Camino helped me get to the bottom of them. And I feel like it's a message of hope, and readers have told me that.
Oh, absolutely.
And that it helped me work through these things and see that I was okay.
I got that from reading. I just met you folks in person, but I get that now. And I wonder, would it be fair to say that at least part of that is perspective? That you're somewhat at a remove from those incidents, and you can look at them maybe a little differently?
Yeah, well, walking trails for me is my happy place.
Right.
It's a peaceful place.
Yeah.
And writing.
But that started with this, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
And I'm still walking the Camino.
Yeah.
I've walked it
up here.
Yeah, up here and in here.
Yeah.
Every day, every trek is the Camino in a way. Yeah.
I think what I saw evolve in Reg was his learning to trust other people and trust their friendship.
Yeah.
And you know, we meet people sitting at a bar and have a conversation, and that's not something Reg usually would do. You'd be too concerned with them judging you or, you know, whatever.
Sure.
But, you know, people are so accepting on the Camino.
Right.
All walks of life, all nationalities.
All ages.
All ages.
And let me tell you an anecdote about ages. one of my brothers had to come back, so I completed the Camino with just one brother. And we were hiking up a hill. Did you encounter any hills? The joke is, if you come across a flat area, tell the highway department and they'll fix it. But anyway, we were going up yet another hill, and there were some young people off to the side, and a young lady said to us, you know what's a good idea is stop every 20 minutes or so and just rest a little. It really helps. And I said, you're absolutely right. And you know what else helps? If you're 20, as she was. But anyway, you said all ages. And
yeah, I thought one of the things that just made me feel really good was when we got to Santiago, and we were just walking down the street. I think we had just gotten in that day. We were walking down the street, and we looked in a window, and there were another gentleman about our age and 3 other young people that we had been, leapfrogging with along the trail. Right. And one of the young men is named Clement from Ireland, and he jumped up from the table, came running out and he gave me this great big hug. He's young enough to be one of my sons.
Sure.
And I thought, gosh, that just made me feel really good. Like you kind of look at each other on the same level when you do something like the Camino.
So you talked about nationality and gender and so on. Something that I thought of in addition to that, and honestly I hadn't thought about it till just right now, I think financial status has no place there. Nobody knows, nobody cares.
I've never been on any trek where people talk much about things other than the moment, and you share laughs, you share stories from the trail, but talking about your careers or even your family.
Sure.
And definitely not politics or religion. And that's one of the wonderful things about it.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. You were a teacher,
right?
And I was thinking, if you went back to the classroom, is there a moment that would capsulize the Camino, or is there a lesson, a message that you would tell the kids now, having had that experience?
Yeah, and it's a message I tried to carry through to my students throughout my career, and that really is you're going to be okay. I definitely gravitated toward the kids who were troubled. I could see kids, and that's a message. You're going to be okay, and that's what I learned on the Camino. I was going to be okay. I was better than I had ever been, and you will be too.
Right.
And then one message I tried to communicate to every class was kindness and respect for everyone. I had a real thing about bullying, and there's a lot of things you could do in a classroom about that.
I'm assuming you've been out of teaching for a bit. I'm seriously, I don't know, but I remember hearing, I think this is a survey from the 50s, that the 2 biggest problems that teachers had at that time, number 1 was chewing gum in line, and number 2 was talking. I suspect that that's accelerated a little bit, and you probably ran into something somewhat more serious than that.
Right.
You talk about bullying. I don't recall, I made it probably happen, but I don't recall bullying.
I was always very sensitive to any mistreatment of others by students of others.
Sure.
And I would do my best to bring that to a head and not necessarily confront it with anger, but confront it with care and compassion. And my goal was to try to get the person who had committed made a mistake to see that without being embarrassed.
Okay.
There was another
the
way.
mistake being bullying.
Right.
Yeah.
Or mistreatment of someone. Or hurtful comment or things. Most of the time they're not aware. Even we as adults are often not aware of things that are hurtful. But as educators, we can do things about it.
Yeah. In capsule form, can you talk about your 2 other books?
Sure.
Yeah.
The Trippin' Through My 60s has 4 European treks in it.
Okay.
And it's I'm a child of the 60s. I came of age at the in the end of the 60s. So it's got the 60s theme of what's happening in the world and our country is quite a tumultuous decade. Combined with my 60s now, because I walked these in my 60s.
Okay.
So I have a little fun with it.
Yeah.
Each trek, but there's 4 iconic European treks there. And then this is from the John Muir Trail, which is you mentioned the Pacific Crest Trail earlier, which coincides with this one most of the way. But this was our wilderness trek. We lived out of a tent.
Okay.
We filtered water. We had no showers for a month, no toilets.
And you're still married. Yeah.
And we had a very small tent.
Very small tent. And we walked with 9 others.
Yeah.
8 of whom had done the John Muir Trail before.
Or parts of it, at least.
We were rookies.
Yeah.
And this truly was a magnificent adventure. I mean, they all were, but this was a whole nother level of adventure and challenge.
Because of difficulty? Is that why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and because it's probably no more beautiful place on earth than the Sierra Nevada. It was just stunning.
Yeah.
Every day was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know, and the romance of the mule train that, supported us. That was just, it was.
Now, did they go ahead of you and wait? I mean, or were you at the same pace?
You know, we all left camp at various times. We didn't walk together in a group.
Okay.
But the mule train, they'd pack up after breakfast, clean up, and sometime during the day they would leapfrog in front of us.
Right.
And then be at camp, and we would meet them. And if our camp was off the trail, they would leave a chair. One of the folding chairs by the trail, and that was our signal to turn.
That reminds me of something else. On the Camino, did you ever get lost? Did you ever miss a sign?
We did one wrong turn. Remember, we're in the town just before the big cross at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
That really run
Cruz
downtown.
de Ferro.
Yeah. We took a nice big wide road going downhill, and we just started thinking that something was wrong.
Right.
This isn't right.
Yeah.
And now we have GPS, which that's a game changer.
Sure.
Yeah. But we had to hike back uphill to find it.
On the Camino, that's such a culture that the townspeople are very aware.
Right.
It's their livelihood in a lot of cases.
Sure.
It's their home, and you're walking through. If they see you going the wrong way, they'll yell at you from their balcony.
Right.
Camino, and they'll point which way to go. Yeah. That's very common.
A couple of things come to mind. Well, we stopped at an albergue, stayed at just a lovely albergue, and which wasn't like a hotel. I mean, it was a good size, but they said when the albergue was full, the population of the town more than doubled. That's how small it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the other thing I wanted to ask, are you bilingual?
No. I wish.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I took high school Spanish
for
a couple years, and I took 1 year in college, which was kind of a repeat of 2 years of high school.
Refresher, yeah.
But that was a long time ago, so I do know how to count, and luckily I remembered the alphabet because someone wanted us to spell a last name on the phone.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Reg is going, they want me to spell.
Yeah.
So luckily I could do that.
Yeah.
So just the real basics.
I'm multilingual and saying hello, thank you, please, and goodbye.
Well, I've said I'm fluent in charades. So let's see here. I think that you have more planned, more hikes planned.
Right.
But I think I understand that you're not looking to write about them. Is that? You said you're going to take your journal.
Right.
Yeah.
I am. I mean, you never know. I'm not planning to, but I'm going to journal just in case. And
Okay.
Yeah.
We're just about done. I thought it would be appropriate to end, as you did your webpage that I read, with the Hunter S. Thompson quote. Do you remember it good enough to say it?
I do not. Not word for word.
It would be more appropriate for you to do it than me to do it.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you this.
All right. Yeah. Oh, I love this quote. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, wow, what a ride.
Yeah, that's the best. And that's it for us. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on The Writing Life.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.